Black smoke is climbing a sealed concrete shaft 150 feet underground, and you are the painter it's climbing toward. You're 17, barely a day on the job, deep inside a Titan II missile silo near Searcy, Arkansas. A second ago, you felt a rush of warm air on your back, turned, and saw flames. It's just after 1 o'clock on the 9th of August, 1965, and the only way up is a vertical escape ladder a dozen men are already fighting to climb. The blast door overhead is shut. The lights are about to go. 55 men came down here this morning, and the air is already turning to poison. You reach the vertical escape ladder, with about a dozen men from your level, your hands on a rung, and you look up the smoke-choked shaft toward a thin sliver of daylight at the very top, the fire glowing below you. And the ladder above you doesn't move. It's jammed solid with men, a wall of bodies who can't climb up and can't come back down. The fire started a level below you, where flammable hydraulic fluid sprayed out under high pressure and lit off in a flash. In an open building you'd run. You can't. This launch duct is a concrete tube capped by a blast door weighing hundreds of tons, sealed shut. The smoke has nowhere to go, and neither do you. You try going the other way, down, and you make it 8 or 10 feet before the dark and the climbing bodies stop you cold, so you crawl back up. Then the power fails. The main lights die, the emergency lights flicker, and a moment later the whole duct goes to pitch-black, smoke-filled dark. Somewhere above you a man is trapped in the personnel elevator, because this silo has no independent power to move it. Everyone had the same idea at the same second, which is why the ladder is a wall of bodies, and the thin daylight at the top, the thing every instinct is screaming at you to climb toward, is the one direction that is about to kill nearly everyone reaching for it. Here is what is actually killing the men on that ladder, and it is not the flames. When the hydraulic fire flashed over, it consumed the oxygen in the sealed duct almost instantly and replaced it with thick smoke and toxic fumes. The men around you are not burning to death, they are suffocating. In a space this size, that takes roughly 2 to 5 minutes from the moment the fire lights. That's the clock. That's all the time anyone down here has, and no one started it on purpose. The blast door that makes this silo strong enough to survive a nuclear near miss is the same door that has just turned the shaft into an airtight box with you inside it. There is one other route out of this duct besides the ladders, and almost no one is taking it. A horizontal passage, a cableway, runs off the level 2 walkway and connects the launch duct to the control center buried alongside it. Up on the topmost level, a 59-year-old paint foreman named Hubert Saunders is working near the missile's protective sheath when the smoke bursts around him. He doesn't go for the ladder. He drops down to that cableway and starts feeling his way along it in the dark, on his hands and knees, holding his breath. He would later put it plainly, the missile was a gun barrel, and so was he, so he got out. He is one way through. You are about to find the other. You make the only choice the geometry leaves you. You turn your back on the jammed ladder and the daylight above it, and you go toward the fire, toward the cableway that leads to the control center. There is no clean route. To reach it, you go through flames. They catch your hands and your face as you push past. On level 2, the way out funnels you in a single direction, past a partition that blocks the straightest path, so there is only one line through, and you are on it, burning, in the dark, moving by feel toward a tunnel you can't see. Behind you, the ladder you walked away from is going silent, and then there is a door. And on the other side of it, air. At about 11 minutes past 1, 2 minutes after the first whoosh, you reach the launch control center. Burned, but breathing. Hubert Saunders is there too. The two of you made it along the same buried tunnel from 2 different starting points. For a moment, here, it is quiet, and the air is clean, and you are alive. Then the count begins on the other side of the door you came through, and it does not stop where you'd want it to. Out of the 55 men who climbed down into that silo this morning, the number who reach this room is 2. You and the paint foreman beside you. Standing in that shaft the whole time, wrapped in smoke, is the Titan II missile itself. A 100-foot rocket loaded with roughly 150 tons of liquid fuel and oxidizer. Here's the part people get wrong, so let's be exact. The nuclear warhead is not in it. It had been disarmed and pulled out before this work ever began, as part of the very modernization the crew came down to do. There is no nuclear weapon in this silo, and there is no chance of a nuclear explosion. But a fueled rocket in a burning sealed tube is its own kind of danger, and that night, as the heat in the duct climbed past the point where the oxidizer can boil, the rescuers feared the propellant itself might go. By late evening, the temperature finally began to fall, and the explosion they braced for never came. The first rescue team reaches the silo within minutes and tries to go down. The heat and the smoke throw them back, and they try again, and the duct throws them back again. There is no rushing in. Captain David Yount starts the emergency procedures at the surface. By early afternoon, Colonel Charles Sullivan, who commands the missile wing, has to report the number that's now certain: 53 men missing below. They are not missing. The recovery teams work through the night, and the last body is not brought up until 5:30 the next morning. Every one of the dead died the same way you nearly did, in roughly the same handful of minutes, from smoke and from air that simply ran out. President Johnson ordered an investigation, and it ended with 26 findings. The official cause the Air Force settled on was this: a contract welder, fitting a steel plate at an awkward angle on a lower level, let his electrode touch a high-pressure hydraulic line, weakening it until it ruptured, and sprayed flammable fluid that ignited. That is the finding on the record, but both men who survived that silo rejected it for the rest of their lives. Gary Lay was blunt about it. There was no one welding down there, he said, and there was no explosion, just a hydraulic line that failed on its own and sprayed onto live electrical equipment. So the official cause and the only eyewitnesses who lived do not agree, and they never have. Strip away the argument over the spark, and the inquiry's other findings explain why one fire killed 53 men in minutes. The lighting was inadequate, so when the power failed, the men were blind. The ventilation was inadequate, so the smoke had nowhere to go. The elevator had no independent power, so it died with the lights and trapped a man inside it. And there were not enough alternative ways out, so when the ladders jammed, most men had nowhere left to go. You lived because you found the cableway. Almost no one else did. Not because they were slower or weaker than you, but because the silo was built so that up was the only exit that felt like one, and up was the way that killed you. You don't come out clean. One of your hands is burned so badly, it's described as burned to a crisp. Your face is burned too, and the ambulance ride to the hospital becomes, in your own words, the longest ride of your life, because of the pain. You spend about 3 weeks healing. Among the 53 who didn't come up are 13 Union men and a sheet metal worker named Jack Milam, who was your friend. Hundreds of feet above the shaft you crawled out of, the families wait for a count that, by late that night, the Air Force has finished making. 53 gone. 2 home. The 2 of you are the entire difference between the worst day at this site and a footnote no one would remember. So could you have found the one way out that 53 men couldn't? The honest answer is that it was never really about being brave or fast. It was about the shape of the box you were trapped in. 53 of the 55 men who went down that morning died, almost all of them within a few minutes, from smoke and lost air, in what remains the deadliest accident ever at a United States nuclear weapons facility, even though not 1 ounce of nuclear material was ever in danger. The men who reached for the daylight died reaching for it. The 2 who lived turned away from the obvious exit and felt their way out sideways through the dark, along a tunnel most of the others never had a reason to think about. That was the whole margin. One route nobody was supposed to need. You heal, you build a life and a business, and you carry one quiet question for 50 years. Why me? A granite memorial to the 53 now stands in Jacksonville, Arkansas, their names cut into it. Searcy wasn't the only Arkansas silo that tried to kill its own crew. 15 years later, one drop socket turns another Titan II into a bomb counting down, warhead still on top. Next time, you're the airman sent back inside.